Back when I was 16 years old, I had a dog named Rex, a Labrador. He always slept with me. He would never wake up at night, let alone bark or whine. This is one of the reasons I was so unnerved when I was awoken around 2:30 a.m. one dark night. When I was awake enough to know what was happening, I noticed that Rex was standing in front of the terrace door. All the fur on his back was standing on end, and he was making a noise that I have never heard him make before. It sounded like a mix between a growl and a cry. I was more worried about him than about what had frightened him at that point. That is, until I noticed what he was looking at. Rex was staring straight at something outside. He had such anger and fear in his eyes. I didn't even know such emotion could be displayed by a dog's eyes. As soon as I looked at the terrace door, Rex turned around and sprinted out of my room. I sat completely still for a minute before I gained the courage to look at the door again. I slowly turned my head. The dread began to gather, but I knew I had to. I finally turned my head the last couple inches and forced my eyes to look. There, on the other side of the street, was a giant owl, or what looked like an owl, except it was the size of a human and had teeth. I sat completely still in my bed, suppressing the childish urge to cover my face with blankets and hope whatever was out there went away. But my curiosity held me in my place. I was scared yet curious as to what it will do. Suddenly, it vanished, and all I could hear was a flap of its wings. Seconds later, I heard sounds from the roof like something dropped on it. The footsteps were heavy. They were most definitely man or man-like. Completely still, I sat and waited. The footsteps stopped for a few seconds and they seemed to go towards the back door of my house. A sound from outside my room in the hall drew my attention away from the door. It sounded like Rex running down the hall. Before I could react, the back door opened and closed. Someone had let Rex out. My legs seemed to know what to do before I did. I was in the hall and at the back door in seconds. I just stood there with my hands hovering above the doorknob for what seemed like minutes. Paralyzing fear was preventing me from actually turning the knob, but I knew Rex was out there and I need to save him from whatever was there. With that thought, I turned the knob and threw the door open. I didn't know what I was expecting, but a complete and utter silence was not it. There, I saw this giant owl standing on the ground. I then saw Rex growling at this thing. It looked at me like I was some prey that it wanted to catch. It was grinning, showing its teeth. It opened its wings, and I can tell by its length that the wings is even bigger than me. It took flight and dove straight at me. I would have been dead and gone if not for Rex. He jumped at this giant owl right before it reaches me, causing it to grab Rex instead. Rex wailed at the pain of the long claws that went through his body, but only for a few seconds. With all the ruckus, neighbors began switching the porch lights on. This somehow agitated the owl, causing it to fly away. I am now living with my grandparents in the city. hoping that this loud noise and bright lights would deter this creature from coming after me.